from what you already know, deduce whatever you need to know. The new problem is that we have to use induction to think up new things that we don't know yet, right? Remember, inductive reasoning is, the swan thing, There's a swan, it's white. There's a swan, it's white. Oh, all swans must be white. Oh, wait a minute. No, there's a black swan. Oh, we made a mistake. Inductive reasoning is always invalid. Only deductive reasoning can be logically valid. But at the same time, you can't learn new things from a deductive system. You can only accept that you're filling in the cracks of your knowledge, but it's already known. Aristotle already knew it, you just didn't realize it because you didn't read that book. With inductive reasoning, there's a recognition that there's a lot of stuff that isn't known. Aristotle made mistakes. Galileo discovers some of his mistakes, although you get in trouble when you point out to the church that Aristotle made mistakes, because the church kind of accepted Aristotle and said, this is really so correct, it's really dogma. It goes with everything else you have to believe from the church. And then it's pointing out that Aristotle was wrong about the nature of things falling and so on. Whoa, that's bad news, right? How can you accept that? But in any case, what we have to find out, we find out through inductive reasoning. Remember, for Descartes, the new knowledge is going to be mathematics, applying mathematics again. But with Hobbes and Francis Bacon, the new knowledge comes from inductive reasoning, where you go and you look and you experiment and try things. And Francis Bacon argued that there are things that you get trapped, you get stuck doing in your beliefs because of different types of beliefs that you grow up naturally thinking is the case. And so we end up with, I'm looking for the caves, the various caves he used as a metaphor for it. I don't see it on here. Well, I'll try to just go by memory. How does that work? Well, the first problem we have is, as we're growing up, that our entire society, our community, all believes in something. And as a result, we grow up believing that to be true. But it could very well be wrong. How do we know? The whole community all thinks that way, but if you're a scientist, you have to test. You can't believe it. So that's the cave. We're growing up, so to speak, in a cave, and as a result, by the way, does that actually relate to the allegory of the cave of Plato? I think so, but I'm not sure. In any case, we also have the marketplace, and the marketplace is where we do all of our business, and everybody in the marketplace all believes the same things, and so we think, as a result of being in that marketplace, that everything that the people in the marketplace all agree with, okay, we'll believe that too, right? But you have to test those theories. The other would be the theater. The idea of the theater is probably Francis Bacon's way of talking about the church. Why? Well, theaters actually initially were at the church. So when you would go to a play, one of the mystery plays and things, they used to have them out on the steps at the front porch of the church, so that everybody could stand in the square. That usually was the biggest open area in the town, and everybody could stand there and watch the performance being put on the step. And as a result, by the way, our modern stage is still set up pretty much that way. You have the same number of doors usually, the entrance and exits and so on. And so when he's talking about the theater, the idols of the theater, he calls them, right? You end up thinking that these teachings are true without actually testing them. The idols of the theater. If I can search in this, right? If I go Alt F and I go theater. Oh, well, no wonder they have it in Latin. Why did they do that? So the idols of the theater. Interesting. So these are basically his critiques of the church. Don't tell everybody. That's what it is, right? He doesn't want to get in trouble with the church, but he's saying you can't believe everything the church says to you. They're the idols of the theater, the idols of the marketplace, the idols of the cave. There should be one more. Let's do another F. Idols. The idols of the mind. That was the one I forgot. But all of these are considered to be idols of the mind. But in any case, you have to test all these. You can't just believe the crap that basically your family, your community, your church, your marketplace tell you. You have to test them. By the way, Francis Bacon ended up dying because he was being a scientist and dumb. Well, maybe he was not quite that dumb. But he was traveling with a friend. They were passing an area where there was some snow, and he decided to test a theory he had. So they stopped at a farm and bought a chicken and had the farmer's wife pluck the chicken so that it was prepared for eating, basically. And then Francis took it outside and he stuffed it with snow, with the idea that cold might actually help keep it from rotting faster. Turns out, well, yeah, that does actually work. The only thing is he also got pneumonia from that experience and died. So is that being dumb? I don't know. But, I mean, you should have paid attention, Francis. He was too cold and he died. So Francis Bacon, and a mentor for Hobbes. But so we've got some elements of modernity here. The idea that individuals who are not part of the nobility class can vote for who's going to be running their life, their mayor, their parishioner minister, and so on. And that is going to find its way into what is so startlingly different with Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes picks up from Galileo that everything is in motion. Aristotle thought everything was staying in place. But instead, Galileo believes everything's actually in motion. Things are moving. Remember, the earth is moving around the sun as far as Galileo is concerned. So we're in motion too, right? For Hobbes, he takes this idea of motions and applies it to human psychology. So the idea then becomes that we're machines and we're moving around like a clock, a well-made clock. It works very well. If there's a problem or two, we end up having problems. But basically, we're motions and our senses are picking up motions. So if we look at this text and we see how he begins, he starts off by talking about the nature of sense, and he explains how the things that we see, for some reason, are particles that are impacting on our eye. And the reason I'm seeing stuff is because there's particles out there that are hitting my eyes. I remember when I first read that thinking, what? That is really dumb. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, that's actually what we do think today, except today what we think of as those particles are light, right? We think of the photons as hitting our eyes. In fact, you could measure, we do have the different rods and what are the other kinds of receptors in the eye? Rods and cones, right? So we have receptors in the eye that are actually being hit by these photons. And so actually, even though his vocabulary seems really odd and old, he's actually right about that. You know, that's how we get information into our eyes, right? And as far as he's concerned, motions don't stop. Galileo teaches you need something, a force, to stop motion, right? Well, there's no force stopping the motion, so as they go into my eyes and then into my brain, they're constantly moving around. As a result, when I'm even sleeping, I have dreams because these darn motions won't stop, right? Wow, right? That's pretty amazing. And in fact, eventually these motions continue on to make me do something. So I'm a machine with all this stuff happening. My ears, I'm also hearing vibrations in the air, and those vibrations enter into my ear and move around, create sounds in my head that keep bouncing around. So I'm like one constant motion type machine, right? Moving around and so on. The vessels in my arms and things, he thought, were tubes of air, so that when I touch things, there's motions pushing on my fingers, and those fingers then carry that motion into my brain through the tubes of air pressure in my body, and so on. And my muscles are it's all motion. It's motion, 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 motion. And unlike Descartes, for Hobbes, there's no ghost in the machine. There's only the machine. So there's no separate soul that's part of a human being. Instead, we're a empirical body, and the body is totally all there is, right? So in that sense, he's very close, really, in what he's describing to people like Steven Pinker and contemporaries that feel like we're not machines. We wouldn't call ourselves machines, but we are just bodies. For them, everything that we are thinking and doing is somehow explained by the brain itself. It's not like there's a separate soul that is somehow riding on top of that, right? So, no soul. Everything is all motions. Imagination is a continuation of these motions that have entered in. A memory is the memory of these motions as we think about them. Dreams, apparitions or visions, understanding. And what moves our thoughts are our desires for pleasure and our avoidance of pain. So the things that make us want to do something is so that we increase the amount of pleasure we get out of it and decrease the amount of pain. Today, I remember Dr. Eric Kandel won a Nobel Prize for his efforts on Dr. Eric Kandel, Nobel Prize winner, is in 2000 for studying how a particular life form, the Apsia, let's see if he has, I can do that. I know, I learned how to do this. Nope, not in there. Shoot. Well, let's go to the Nobel. Oh, that's just going to tell us what the Nobel Prize is. Everybody knows what the Nobel Prize is, yes? Okay. I know a way to do this.
upon the analysis of the mechanisms that mediated the learning and that stored the memory. So I'm going to follow this outline, and let me begin with the delineation of the behavior. So this